am here with my lecture, and the topic for today's lecture is REST APIs with Node.js or ExpressJs. So, first of all, let's destructure the topic and understand what is an API. So, API stands for the Application Programming Interface. In simple words, API helps us to build a connection between the different software so that they can communicate with each other. It has some standard rules and protocols which helps to build a connection or interface between the different software so that all those software can communicate with each other. The next thing is, what is REST? Actually, APIs has different kind of APIs in it, and one of those kinds is REST. There are some other kinds also like SOAP and many more, and REST is one of them. So let's see what is REST API. So REST stands for the representational state transfer. It is a kind of API which is lightweight and has stateless communication. So what is lightweight? Lightweight means it does not require that high bandwidth, means it does not require high speed of data. It can also perform all its operation under a slower data as well. Second thing is the stateless communication. It means that all the requests that are which are being made by the REST APIs are independent of each other and does not affect each other. It means that it is not storing any kind of state in it which will be affecting any further API's request. The third thing is it uses the HTTP methods. What is HTTP? HTTP stands for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. These hypertext transfer protocols are basically some rules which the REST APIs follows. It basically works on the client server architecture. So in the client server architecture, what happens is the client makes a request to the server and server gives a response as per the request made by the client. The first thing which comes to our mind is, what is a client? Client basically denotes the front end side. The front end can be a mobile app, it can be a web app, it can be a website, or any other thing which is making a request to the server is a client. So the client first of all makes a request to the server, and server will examine that request and gives a response to the client back as per the request made by the client. So there is a case that always client firstly will make a request, then only the server can give a response. It will be never like that the client has made no request but a server is giving a response. It will never happen in the client server architecture. Now, as we know that the REST APIs use the HTTP methods. So let's see how many methods are there in HTTP. So actually there are four methods. The first one is the get method. In the get method, it helps us to fetch all the information from the server. For example, we are using Instagram and we want to see all the messages that are being sent in our friends group. All the messages are a part of the are the part of the data of the Instagram server. I want to get all that data, so it will be fetched from the get request. The second one is the post request. For example, I wanna create and want to create an account in Instagram. So I will pass some credentials to the Instagram, and it will see all those credentials and make an account for me. The third one is a put request. Put request basically helps to update the data. For example, my username on Instagram is XYZ, but now I want to change it to ABC. Then I will be using the put request to update my data in the Insta server. The fourth one is to delete. Delete, as its name suggests, that delete helps to delete the account, delete anything. It's just not account. Delete anything from the server. In that case, the delete request is used. So it was all about the REST APIs. We know, we all know about the REST APIs now. Let's talk about the Node.js. So what is Node.js? So Node.js is basically an JavaScript runtime environment. We all have heard of this word various times. So what is a JavaScript runtime environment? So it is basically an environment which provides all the essential things which we need to run the JavaScript code. As we know, we all have done work in JavaScript, and we know that the JavaScript is run on the browser only. But what if we want to run the JavaScript in our IDs like VS Code and many more? Then we need an environment, and that is provided by the Node.js. So, what are those requirements that are needed in order to execute the JavaScript code? So, some of the requirements are the engine and that JavaScript need. The second thing is the event loops, the libraries, and many more. Such there are such requirements which the JavaScript need. So in Node.js, it uses the Chrome's V8 engine. It means that it is made on the Chrome's V8 engine that it is using under the hood. And this Chrome's V8 engine is written in C++, if you know. So this is the Node.js, and this helps us to create the JavaScript servers, which enables us to write our backend also in JavaScript. As for now, we have used the JavaScript in the front end only, but we can also use the JavaScript in the backend using the Node.js. So now we know about the Node.js. So what is this ExpressJS if we can make our server using the Node.js only? So ExpressJS is basically a Node.js framework only, which helps us to create the servers. So what is the difference between the Node.js and ExpressJS? So listen, Node.js is basically a JavaScript runtime environment which is used to make the servers, but uh, th- but there are some complications whenever we are making the Node.js server without Express. But whenever we are using the Express.js, then it simplifies our process of development, and it helps us to create the routes, the middlewares, and many other things very in a very faster and scalable way, and that is why the ExpressJS is used. So does that mean that we can make the servers without ExpressJS? JS and Node.js and a little about the REST APIs also. So now let's do one thing. Let's make an ExpressJS server and see how things work in our coding part. So to create an Express server, the first thing we need to do is to run a command that is npm init. It will ask for some questions. First thing is the package name. Let's keep it Express server for the time being. The version, the description if you want to give, entry point, test command, git repository, keywords, author, Suraj, license ISC, common JS only, and yes. So now you can see that there is a package.json file has been made. It has all the information about our project, the name, the version, description, license, author, type is common JS, main. It is one of the important thing. It is main index.js. It means that whenever I will be launching my server, it will look for the index.js file and run that file. There are also some script. We will be talking about this part later on. So let's create an index.js file. So for now, if we want to create an Express server, what is the first thing we need is the Express.js package. So we will be installing that Express.js package. I will just hit the enter and wait, and it's done. Now my Express package has been installed. That is why this node modules folder is present here. and a package log JSON file has been also made. Now, if we again look into the package.json file, you can see that a new column has been added, that is dependencies. In dependencies, all the packages that I am using in my server are being listed. So let's do one thing. Let's create our first npm server, our first Express server. First thing we need to do is make an import statement. So now I have imported my Express. Now I have to create the instance of my Express. So let's do that thing. For now, I am calling it app. You can call it anything you want, but it's better to call it app only, because if you will be seeing in the large code databases, usually developers call it app only, but it's all your wish if you want to call it something else. Now I will create a listener. The listener takes two parameters. The first one is the port it is listening for. The second parameter is a callback function. In this callback function, I will be writing some code which will be executed if my server gets successfully uh, running. Now let's do one thing. Write node index.js. What it will do? It will run this JS file, and yeah, my server is successfully running. Let's do one thing. Sorry, add port 3000. Now you see that I just changed my file, the content of my file, but it is still here. The server is running. There is no add port 3000 because we are using the node. In node, if we make a change in a file, but the server does not reload it because it is its properties and all. But what we need to do is we need to turn off our server, relaunch it, then we can see that it has been updated now. But it is very hectic to keep on closing our server, reopening our server. So that is why we will be using Nodemon. Nodemon, what it will be doing, that if there is any change in our file, then it will just automatically detect that change and reload my server. Now see, if instead of and, let's say I'm writing and. So here it was at, but now it is and. Let's keep it at only. Yeah. So that's how a simple Express server is made. So let's do one thing. Let's create an array of users. Why so? I will be telling in some time. ID 2 and name should be Rohan or something, and you want to do. Now our main task was to use the to build the REST APIs in the Express server. So let's go back to whiteboard, and you can see that I told you about the four kind of methods or requests you made using the HTTP. The first one is the get, post, then put and delete. We will be making all these four requests. So let's do. Firstly, we will be making a get request. For that, what we will be doing to make a route, we need the instance of Express, that in this case we have app. App is our instance of Express. So we will be writing app dot, we are making a get request, we are handling a get request. That is why we will just put get. Now this get takes two parameters. The first one is the path, the route. The second one is a callback function. The first one is a route and the second one is a callback. Okay. App. First one is something path and Second one is a callback function. This path is always a string only. First of all, let me make it clear that what is a path. So let's say you have a friend Sujal who lives in house number 9. You have another friend Rohan who lives in house number 10, and Kajal who lives in house number 3. So whenever you are going to house number 9, you will be saying that Sujal will be sitting there. You will be, if you go to house number 10, you will see that the Rohan is sitting there. If it is house number 3, you will go to house number 3, you will see that Kajal is living there. So these are basically the addresses of those individuals, and you will find those individuals in those houses only. Okay, so routes or the paths are basically the addresses of a function, and these are the functions which are executed whenever a client make a request at this specific route, which means if the my path is u only slash u, okay, and the client make a request at slash u, then my this code will be executed, whatever I will be writing here. Now this code will be executed whenever slash u route is hit by the client. Okay, so let's explore more. Now let's explore the callback function. So this callback functions gets two parameters. The first one is the request. The second one is the response. So in the what is this request and response? So you know about in this example, in the post example, I told you about whenever you are making in an Instagram account, then you need to pass on some credentials, the username, the password, or the email to create an account. So this request object, this is an object. Request object is used in order to get, in order to pass that information or your username, password, and other information from the client side to the server side. Request is used pass information from the client side to the server side. Okay, and second thing is the response. What does response do? Response means that once the information has come, we have processed all our tasks and all. Now at the end, we have to pass some message or anything back to the client to make client aware that the task has been done or some error has come or anything. Or for example, the client has asked for an image, like we want this image. Now the server has to send that image to the client back. So for that, this response object is used. So why it is used? To pass information from server to client. Pass information, the data from server to client. The request, what it does, gets information from the client to the server, response from the server to the client. I hope you understand. So now let's do one thing. Let's create an, let's say, hello. And what this route will be doing, it will be sending some response. So if I want to send some response, how to do it? This is my server and I want to pass that information to the client side. Then how I will be doing? I will be using the response, because the response is used to pass the information from server side, this server, to the client side. So I will be using response. It has many functions: send, JSON, DDL, render, and all. We will be using send for now, and I will be sending hello from Mr. Server. I will be just saving it. So now I have successfully made my first get route, which is my hello route, which sends some random data, hello from Mr. Server. to the client side. Let's test it first of all. So for testing, I will be using the Postman. Postman is basically a software which backend developer usually use to test their APIs. So first of all, I have made a GET request. So I will be selecting GET here. Now it is my local server. It is in my local machine. That is why the request will be HTTP colon slash slash. It is just the syntax. If you can cram, you can. Now next thing is the local host. Local host is basically a keyword which denotes or which can be used to access all the servers running on your local machine. If you want to access any server that is running on your local machine, then the local host is used. Okay. You can also, if you want to get that hmm, get route, that IP address, then you can just go to your Wi-Fi and in settings and you can just find that out. You don't need to, because you can just use this keyword localhost and access your local machine. Now colon, and next thing I will be putting a 4-digit number, that is our port. So in this case I am using the port 3000. I will just copy this and go and paste here. So this is my domain on which my server is running. Now what is the route I have made just now? That is slash hello. So I will just say slash hello. So here it is a GET request. It is the route I am hitting. Now I will be just, so this is the response I have got. This is hello, I am Mr. Server, and I am getting HTML. So now I think you have just guessed that this send function is used to pass the HTML content to the client. You can also send it something like this, and you will be seeing that H1 tag has come. So similarly, this response has also some other some other kinds of responses as well. For example, response dot send file. This send file helps you to send any kind of file like video, like audio, like image, or any other kind of file to the server side. Apart from it, there is also JSON. If you know JSON, if you don't know, then let me tell you. JSON is basically a kind of intermediate language which helps the different technologies to communicate with each other. For example, there are servers in Spring Boot, Python, in Django, and in Node.js, and many more. There are some mobile applications as well. If we want to pass the data, then the other programming languages will not be able to understand the JavaScript. JavaScript don't understand Java or Python. So we need a common language which can be understood by all, and the data can be converted to their specific language using some specific functions. So that is why the JSON is used, so that the different technologies can communicate with each other. So let's do one thing, pass some JSON data. We will be making a request. So yeah, I have got some data and it is of type JSON. Okay. So now I hope you got this get. So I will be sending, let's do one thing. Yeah, one more thing, that there is a status as well. Like I will be sending JSON only, some data, but this status, it is sent with our response as well, to let the client know that the data he or she is getting is is a successful with a successful code message or not. For example, let me show you an image. Yeah, here it is. So if the code starts with 1, then it is an information code. If it is starting with 200, then it is a success code, that the the task has been made successfully. The third one is the 300, which is a redirection. 4, if it starts with 400, then it means that there is some issue from the client side, like the data is corrupted or something. The 500 means there is some issue with the server. It means the server has crashed or any other issue which the server is facing. So for now, I will be passing the 200 because here I am saying that the user has been fetched successfully because the user in my global state only. So now if I will making a request, so yeah, I have got an array. The user is an array. I'm getting this same array here, which has ID 1 and name Suraj, ID 2 and name Rohan. So now you know that the how simple get route is working. Now let's do one thing. Make a post request. So to make a post request, we know that the same app instance we need. In this case, I need to make a post request, so I will be writing post. Now you all know what a path is. Let's do one thing. Let's call it create request response, same the way I have done before. And okay. Now the next thing, uh, let's say I want to push some data into this user. Okay. So what I will be doing is I want some data. First of all, I need some data from the client side. The client will be sending some data to the backend, and that data will be inserted in this array. That is what I need to do. How can I do it? So I told you before that if I want some data from the client side, then which object I will be using? That is the request object. The request object is used to get the data from the client side to the server side. So I can know that this request will be I will be using to get the data from the client side. So this request has many properties, the body, params, and many more. Usually, whenever we are passing some data, then it is in the body only. So we will be using the body only. So what we will be doing? I will say the name is equals to request dot. I said it is present in body. So request dot body will also be an object. Inside it, my name will be present. So the value request dot body dot name is being passed to the name variable. Now I will create a new user. Let's call it new user only. Its ID, let's say 78, and name which is given by which is coming from the client side. Now what I will be doing, I will just push that new user to my users, and at last I will make a response of my users. So what I have done, I am taking the name from the client, making a new user with ID 78. I can also take that ID from the client only, but for now I am just making it hardcode here. I just push that new user to my users and returning that users list to back to the client. So let's do that again. First thing, it is a post request. It is a post request. Okay. Second thing, the route is not hello this time. It is create. So it is create. Yeah. So what I will be doing, I will come to the body. In the body, I will select JSON. Second thing is I will select raw. I will make an object with a name. Let's call it something Kajal. Kajal is not there, no? No. Okay. So I am passing in the name field, I am passing the value Kajal. Okay. And it is the object that is being called my request dot body there. It is the same object. This is the request dot body. Let's cut it down. Now I will send and see what happens. So I have got an error. So let's see what is my error. So my error is cannot read the properties of undefined. And what it is the property it is reading, that is name. It was trying to read the name, but it cannot. Why? So let's see. So we can see that it was trying to read the name. It means that the request.body is undefined. But how the request.body can be undefined if we are passing the data from the client side? So actually what is happening, it needs a middleware. Why so? The middleware, that middleware will be used to convert that data in some code which can be understood by my server. So what is the name of that middleware that I will be using? That is express.json. That is an inbuilt middleware of my Express only. So how to use an middleware here? I need that instance of Express. I will be using use. Use is used to you like to put any middleware in my server. That the name of my middleware is express.json. Now all the data that will be coming from in the body of my client will be converted, and I can read that data here. Now let's save it and again make a request. So yeah, successfully 200 means the request is successful and that Kajal has been added with ID 78. So yes, it means my post is working fine. So I hope you understand how the post request is working. It is getting the data from the client, making a new user, pushing that user to the array, and just returning it back. So now let's do one thing. And now my next request was put. So what I will be doing, I will make an put request and I will name it change. What it will be doing, I will be let you know in a second. Yeah. So what it will do, it will change my whole users array. A new array I will be passing from my client side, and it will just change my users. So let's do it. Uh, so let's get the data from the client. So how to do it? I will say the data will be coming from where? The request.body.data. We can do it in a much better way. What we can do, we have studied JavaScript, so we know that we can just destructure my request.body and get data out of it. Now what I will do, I will just do users will be data, and in response I will send my users. It means whatever array value will be coming from this data, it will be passed to my users, and I will see whether my users has been changed or not. Let's do it. I will be selecting the put request. My route name is change. So my body is expecting a data which will be an array, and that array has some object. let's say Kalia, and the ID, let's say 21. Okay, now it is my requested body which has and field data. Data is an array, and that array can have multiple objects. So let's make a request. And yes, I have got the response. The JSON response, the user has been changed with the data I gave it to it. So I hope the put request is clear to all. Now the last one is the delete request. App dot delete. It's just same. Just name it delete only. Mm. Mm, Here, what I will be doing. Let's do one thing. Okay, so mm, let's do one thing. I want to delete a specific user. So I will be asking for the ID from the user. So what is this way? Actually, whenever we want to create a dynamic route, then we use this colon. It means now user don't need to hit the route at just a second. User don't need to hit the route at delete slash ID. User will be hitting a delete slash anything he want like 9. It can be 10, it can be 11, it can be something else, but it should have some value. So that's how the dynamic routing works. We will be explaining it in detail in some other video, I think. So, how to get that ID? If I want to get that ID, it is present as it is coming from the client side only. So, it will be present in request only. But how to get it? It will be present in my request dot params. Params means actually this ID, this column thing is called parameters only. That's why it is present in params. So now what I will be doing, I will go to the users, filter out the user where ID is not equals to user dot ID. What it will do, it will filter, it will see the whole array and see if that ID is being matched by any of the user of that array, then it will just remove that user and rest of the users will be still there in my user array. Okay, so now it's time for testing. I will just go to delete. I will say just delete anyone which has the ID 1. Let's see what happens. So yeah, now only Rohan has come, but we had two users, Suraj with ID 1 and Rohan with ID 2. But after the delete request, we got only a single user, that is Rohan with ID 2. So that was all about my delete route. So now I am done with all my four routes. So thank you for attending the lecture. Thanks.